Hey everyone, welcome to Uma Talks with Natalie Romash and Rita Kakati-Shah. Hi Rita.
Hi Natalie, hi everyone.
How have you been doing?
Doing great. How are you doing? It's a sunny afternoon in New York City, so I'm happy.
Yeah, that's true. I'm happy as well. And Rita, I'm so glad that this week we talked about failure because this topic is such kind of a pain point because it stops us from getting better. And I do personally love how we at UMA treat it because it turned out that we treat it pretty different from common perspective. And I'm so glad that we have all the questions from everyone. And Rita, are you ready to help our followers to learn more about fear?
Absolutely ready and raring to go.
Perfect. And our first question is from Alice. And Alice is the mom who is getting back on track and she is getting back to work after a career gap. And Alice is asking how to pick up yourself after several job rejections.
Great question, Alice. Thank you for asking us that question. So the way I like to think about it is don't think of it as a rejection. Think of it as more of a learning point for you. You know, when people think of the word failure, when people think of getting rejected, it always has a negative connotation. Well, how about we flip it around and say, you know what, maybe that wasn't the right fit in the first place. Maybe that wasn't the right place to go, but also it's a learning exercise. So I think, what can we learn from the, not hearing back or something didn't turn out a certain way? Well, Alice, maybe it's a good idea to revisit your resume again. How are you listing your job opportunities? How are you selling yourself in the first place? Maybe it's a good idea to kind of, let's look at the way you're interviewing, or what is the company that you're looking for in the first place. These are all little part of your journey. So I think, don't think of getting rejected or failure, so to speak, as being something negative. Think about it as a learning experience for you. So go along with that, and we're around for resources. So please feel free to reach out if we can actually be of any more help to you in the future.
Oh, thank you, Rita. It was such a good question and such a good answer. And getting rejections, it feels pretty sketchy and in almost all cases. And teaching yourself to deal with the rejections in a productive way is kind of a journey, and it can be pretty hard sometimes. And Rita, we have a question from Suzanne, and Suzanne is asking how to see the glass half full if you're always getting negative responses.
Yeah, that's such a really great question. And actually, to your point as well, Natalie, is that, rejection hurts. There's no sugarcoating it. We're not trying to say that, oh my gosh, you should get rejected. Yes, smile, everything's going to be better. That's not the reality. We are humans. We are tuned to feel emotion. So no matter what, you feel, you get the feeling of disappointment. You feel like you've done something wrong. So in terms of your question now, and Trish, in terms of seeing that glass half full, it's basically saying that every situation has two sides to it. I think of it as a coin. There's heads or tails. You could look at a glass, and I think of it as being half full. It's a more of a positive outlook rather than, okay, I got rejected again. I'm not good at this. It's the end of the world. Rather than that, think, okay, I got rejected again. No big deal. Let's get something else lined up. Let me analyze what happened. What are the conversation points? What is it that I can understand from the latest situation that could make me think, you know what, maybe I could have phrased that differently. Or maybe I can actually follow up with somebody, whether it's a team meeting or an encounter, and say, you know what, can I get some feedback on that? Or what would you like me to do to bid for this project in the future? Something like that, because then that would help you understand where to build up yourself. So I think in terms of seeing the glass half full, think of it in terms of how can you better yourself? What is the learning journey that you've gone on from whatever the feedback is that you've had as well? So try that and see how you get along.
Oh, thank you, Rita. I do love the way of treating rejections as the way of getting feedback and getting learned sometimes. But, there are different kind of people who are perfectionists. And sometimes those people, and I am one of them, are equipped with with imposter syndrome. So if we look deeper in it, we can be getting caught in perfectionism and in doing something thousands times, but not because we afraid of to show it somewhere, but because we have an inner critic who says, hey, it's not okay, it's not enough, or whatever. And actually we have a question from Hayam is asking, I'm a perfectionist by nature, so see everything as a needed improvement, even it really doesn't. How to deal with this?
Okay, great, Chaim. That's a great question about perfectionists. I mean, I'm a perfectionist myself. I like to get things done a certain way. So I don't punish yourself, number one. Acknowledge the good things about why you're a perfectionist. You know, is it attention to detail? Is it checking things before you send something off? What are the good things about that? And then check some of the other things. For example, do you really need to make sure that every single point on your essay is correct, or every single point on if you're writing an email or you have to submit something straight away? Do you really need to do all of those things before you hit that submit button? Quite often we don't want the perfectionist to be the enemy of ourselves. You know, time is of a constraint in the real world, and we don't want that to stop our creativity. Sometimes if we let ourselves go and just think, we can be a lot more creative if we let some of that perfectionist side go. I have to do it myself. So I actually find that works quite a lot. So I think don't see it as, you know, a bad thing. See it as a good thing. But think about what you can learn from being a perfectionist. And you don't want to hold you back. You know, Natalie, something you brought up actually is about imposter syndrome. And sometimes the two, perfectionism, can be linked with imposter syndrome. You think, what if I make one mistake? What if I'm saying something and I forget my lines? That makes us sometimes feel that, you know, are we good enough for this? Should I even be here in the first place? And that can easily go from too much perfectionism to imposter syndrome. So I think just take a step back, take a deep breath, say, you've got this, and just let go with the flow. Just be relaxed a little bit more about it. You know, letting little things go that actually helps us in the long run. So go with that and see how it goes.
Oh, thank you, Rita. It was such a good question and great answer. And, it turned out that based on the questions from our followers, that fear and failure and all the connected emotions are not only about the perfectionism or just the fear of failure by itself, but it's also about the kind of culture and kind of how we treat it. Because in a startup world, everyone tend to say fail fast, but in nature we tend not to fail at all, because we kind of like don't like it, and pretty often it is associated with punishment. So our next question is from John, and John is asking, how can failing at something be turned into something positive?
You know, John, it's a great question. And I think, you know, when you think of entrepreneurship and the startup world, in a way, you are building yourself up for entrepreneurship by being prepared to fail. What it does, it builds up resilience. You know, I've got to say, when I first started up Uma, or, you know, when I advise other folks, I tell people all the time that I have a red nose right here because of the number of doors that have been shut in my face when I'm trying to get an appointment or a meeting with somebody. That is what you have to get used to. Did I turn away and say, oh, I'm going to give up? No. I kept getting that red nose, so much so that, you know, I'm now Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, I like to call myself. So it's something that becomes part of who you are. You have to embrace that feeling. You have to love what you're doing so much and be passionate for it that you just have to go out there and get it. You know, one thing I like to say about failure, John, is that we need to redefine how we think of failure. You know, instead of thinking of it as being something bad or something that means that we're not worthy, think of it as a chance of reflection. Think of it as a chance to accept what's going on, a time to build that resilience that we just talked about. You know, ultimately, I tell people all the time that failure actually provides the building blocks for success. And I think anyone that has been in the startup world can actually vouch for that. You know, it takes a lot of perceived failure, so to speak, before you see that. So let's just go on there, John, and see how you get along. You know, just embrace that.
Rita, I'm so glad that we tied this topic, because sometimes failure is easy to treat when you do it in professional area, but it's hard to treat it in real life. And you know, as a designer, I use prototyping a lot, and people are often very surprised when you say that the purpose of making a prototype is actually to destroy it and to figure out why it's not working, why it's not perfect, how to improve it. And the prototype shouldn't be perfect, shouldn't be great. It's just supposed to give you learning experience. But it's very easy and very natural to treat prototypes as failure in a good way. But when it comes to real life and to other areas, sometimes we do need help in figure out how to reflect on this and how to reframe it. And we have our last question, and it is from Tanya. Tanya is asking, your definition of failure is refreshing. How can I be better on reflecting on my failures and reframing them?
Great question, Tanya, and also great analogy that you gave, Natalie, as well. It's so true that we shy away from failure, but thinking about it as something that you purposely do to improve is a great way. So actually, Tanya, that is a great way of thinking about it too. Thank you for calling our definition refreshing. I love to think that about our definitions too. So what we try to do is we try to almost turn a concept on its head when given to us. So failure for us is a position of power. If you don't fail, you do not know how to succeed. If you have not had rejection, you cannot appreciate the acceptance much. It's all about, appreciating and becoming a better person, business person, entrepreneur, mother, parent, employee. Everything comes ultimately from being rejected at some point in your life, having failed at something. I think it makes us more resilient and more grounded as people in the long term. So when in our definition, Tanya, when we talk about, having the building blocks for success, what do we actually mean for that? Well, you might get a rejection, you might have a letter, you might have an exam that you just haven't, you lost a couple of points in, whatever. Why does that make us feel negative? Well, it could be something that's come from our past. Maybe you're a child and your parents, when you scored not 100% on an exam, your parent would say, oh, good job, but how about we look at the questions you got wrong, rather than, oh, great job, let's look at what you did correctly. And I think we've been fine-tuned in our entire existence and our lives, our bring-ins, to look at that and be more critical on ourselves. So in terms of, Tanya, how you can turn our definitions for something successful, it's a chance really to reflect on yourself. When you can reflect what went wrong in the first place, is it, look at yourself and really analyze in a proactive manner. Then you can accept that decision. When you accept something, what that means is you acknowledge what's happened and you move on. Do not dwell on something. You get the feedback, you accept it, and you move straight on. And then comes a resilience. Multiple versions of this is what makes us strong, makes us passionate. Sometimes we can tweak and rejig where we're going with this. That's all part of the plan of this. And then we can make ourselves even better the next time on. And then that's how you get these building blocks for success. They don't just come, you build them. They come from resilience. They come from grit. They come from passion. So take that with you, Tanya. And I hope this failure can turn to success for you.
Oh, thank you, Rita. It was so inspiring, and even it add some more fire in me while you were telling this. And I hope that your advice helps Tanya and will help everyone else who is watching us, because sometimes we need even some kind of boost of confidence and some kind words to move on and to see our failures from a different angle. And I'm so great that you said these words at the end of our today's Uma Talk. And guys, I'm so happy for all of your questions, and thank you so much. And next week we're gonna discuss success. So feel free to start reaching out us now and DM us any questions you have about success.
Excellent. I love the topic of success. It follows very naturally from today's topic. So brilliant. Looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you, Rita. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye, everyone.